Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video, doing European Outlook for today's second video. So as always on Tuesday, having a look at weather for the next month. It's actually next 6 weeks, but having a look at weather for the next month to 6 weeks for Europe. And I shall get on that for you very shortly. We've got the ECMWF extended charts here, so we'll go through those in a second. Just say that the first video already say was our 7 AM upload. We've got the 10 to 14 day. We've got all of the regular features coming up for you later on this afternoon. And we're going to have Terry Scolier's June and also summer 2021 forecast for you this evening after 7 PM. So it'll be a nice little evening watch on your Tuesday night. Oh, yeah, having a lovely day. It's absolutely fantastic weather, isn't it? It was lovely yesterday as well. What a bank holiday Monday that was. So, yeah, I hope you're having a lovely day. And please like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Right, so we'll leave webcam on, I think. I have discovered that when we highlight, it doesn't freeze the webcam. So, we have to leave webcam on, I think, for this one. Right, okay, so let's do this then. So we're going to start off by having a look at the week 1 mean sea level pressure anomaly. Is going to take us from the 31st of May through to the 7th of June. The coming week, or this week I suppose, we'll have high pressure dominating there across northern Europe and extending down into central and eastern parts of Europe as well. The ridge also pushes through France and then out into the Atlantic. It's a large area of high pressure that we've got there. Lower pressure up towards Greenland and Iceland. That's where the jet stream resides as well. And the jet stream sort of plunges southwards into the southeast of Europe. So there's a trough of low pressure coming in through here. But essentially, most parts of Europe are dominated by high pressure. We see this on the 500 millibar height anomaly from the North Pole view down as well. So we've got this big area of above average heights here across the northern and western Europe as well. Below average heights out in the Atlantic through there and also into southeast Europe. The jet stream, therefore, will be doing something a little bit like that. So cooler and more unsettled in this far southeastern corner. But again, most parts of Europe are dominated by this big area of high pressure. That high pressure will be pulling up warm, sort of southerly winds, you know, across much of northern and western Europe in particular. So temperature normally looks like that. It's cooler than average in the eastern and southeastern parts of Europe. So anywhere from like Poland through to Black Sea and then down to southeast, including Greece and Turkey actually, coming out with below average temperatures this week. It will still be hot in the eastern part of the Med, of course, even if the anomaly is like a couple of degrees below average. It'll still be pretty hot at this time of year in the Mediterranean. But it is below average like for eastern parts of Europe. Conversely, though, it's much warmer now across northern and western Europe. So Scandinavia in particular, standing out as being quite hot there, around 3 to 6 degrees above average. Ireland, the UK, France, Belgium, Holland, Netherlands, Germany, all coming out with above average temperatures too. Down into the Mediterranean, it's actually nearer normal through Spain and Portugal. Quite warm through the central bowl of the Med to Italy, and then over the Adriatic into the Balkans, and then down to this southeastern part of the Med. It does get rather cooler through those areas. And precipitation-wise, we look like this. So many parts of Europe are drier than normal. It does look rather wet, probably from thunderstorms from France down into the Mediterranean. So particularly focused on northern Spain, around the Côte d'Azur, and then down into central part of the Med, actually, a little bit unusually so, and even into North Africa. A little bit wetter than average. Again, I think a lot of that's going to be down to thunderstorms. Then in the southeast and east part of Europe, again, on about trough of low pressure, what we saw in the 500 millibar height anomaly, it is rather wetter than average through there, especially around the Black Sea. They are the exceptions. Most parts of Europe, you'll notice, from Ireland and the UK and west over to western Russia in the east, and all points in between having average to drier than average conditions in the week ahead. So most parts of Europe will be dry and warm or hot, but there will be a few exceptions. Right, that's week 1 done. Let's have a look at week 2. It's going to be the 7th through to 14th of June. So high pressure then sitting right over top of the UK and Ireland. That will keep the fine weather going. Much of northern and western Europe if it comes off. So high pressure again just generally through the western and northern part of Europe, to be honest. Low pressure out in the Atlantic, but it is being held at bay up to this point by that big area of high pressure. Pressure looks weaker across eastern, southeastern parts of Europe as well, so I think the jet stream will be doing something a little bit like that, probably. That could be a little bit out, but you get the idea of where the troughs and the ridges are going to be into the second week of June. 500 millibar height anomaly from the 7th to 14th of June. Looks like this. So again, we see that the high pressure is across the western part of Europe. Low pressure is in the east and the southeast of Europe, a trough of below average heights there, and in the Atlantic. So again, the jet stream is going to be doing something a bit like that. So cooler and more unsettled in the east and southeastern part of Europe. Again, warmer and drier through the western and northwestern part of Europe. Week 2, temperature anomalies. Again, showing that the west of Europe is warmer than average. So again, from Scandinavia down through Ireland, the UK, many parts of France, this time in Spain, Portugal as well, above average temperatures. From Germany eastwards, it starts to get cooler, and particularly so again in this eastern part of Europe, kind of like Ukraine and towards the Black Sea, and then down in towards the Balkans. Again, we see definite signs that it's pretty cool across that eastern part of Europe. And precipitation wise for week 2, we look like this. So again, it's driest in the west and in the northwest, so anywhere from like Spain and Portugal up to Scandinavia and to the north and west of that, generally drier than average. Near normal precipitation over on this eastern side of Europe. When we come down to Mediterranean and most parts of the western bowl of the Med, into Spain, Portugal, drier than normal. From Italy, southeastwards in towards the eastern part of Med, in towards Greece, it's wetter than average there, and looks rather wet through the Balkans and around the Adriatic as well. Right, that's week 2 done. Let's have a week 3. It's going to take us from the 14th to the 21st of June. Weakening signals, but I think a shift towards lower pressure. So you'll notice that area of high pressure. So we've got a tiny little bit of pink there in the North Sea. But it looks like pressure is weakening here. We've got low pressure in the North Atlantic and extending into these northern, northeastern parts of Europe. Some low pressure down towards Spain as well. I mean, we're 3 weeks out, so the signal is probably weakening too. So we could keep the high pressure going through here, I suppose. But to me, that looks like it's turning just a little bit more unsettled, I think, in that week. Let's see if the 500 millibar height anomaly shows any difference. So again, it is still going for like above average heights around the UK and Ireland, maybe a little bit to our west. So definitely, like, there could be a ridge hanging on. Many northern and eastern parts of Europe turning more unsettled with this trough of low pressure around Greenland as well. So the jet stream is doing something a little bit like that. It does look as though most parts of Europe are turning more unsettled and cooler here. For the far west, Ireland, UK, possibly France, we might keep that area of high pressure going just about. The temperature anomaly, again, east-west split, cooler than average through these eastern parts of Europe, anywhere from Poland eastwards is cooler than average. From Poland westwards, it's average to warmer than average, and particularly so down the western side of Europe. So again, Ireland, UK, France, Spain, Portugal, above average temperatures through here into the Mediterranean. Warmest in the western part of the Med, coolest in the eastern part of the Med. This was like quite a cool June for Eastern Europe and quite a warm June for Western Europe. Precipitation-wise for week 3, so it does suggest that this high pressure could go on, actually, to some degree anyway, for the northwest of Europe. So again, it's driving average through much of France, into Germany, into the Low Countries, Denmark, southern Scandinavia, Peninsula, Norway and Sweden, and Ireland, the UK, driving average through there. A little bit above average with rainfall, again, quite unusual for parts of the Mediterranean, perhaps, and then this east part of Europe, again, looking just a little bit wetter than average. Right, let's look at week 4. If you're enjoying this extended look ahead with the ECMWF extended model, then please can you smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. Right, this is week 4, 21st, 28th of June. Now looking more unsettled across most parts of Europe with just lower pressure developing, really. So it's hard to see much in the way of high pressure. There must be some high pressure somewhere, so maybe there'd be a bit of a ridge beginning to form in this eastern, southeastern part of Europe. But overall, I think this this is a definite indication that the second half of June, with this particular run of the ECM today, is turning more unsettled. We see from the 500 millibar height anomaly, high pressure pulls back out into the middle of the North Atlantic, and lower pressure starting to dig in to Northern and Western Europe. So the jet stream doing something like that. Jet stream's back, and obviously it's going to be cooler and more unsettled for many parts of Europe as we go into the second half of June. So a warm, dry first half of June for Western and Northern Europe, cooler and more unsettled southern and east parts of Europe, and then all areas becoming more unsettled and cooler probably into the second half of June. Temperature anomalies look like that for week 4, so yes, definite cool down is going on across Northern and Western Europe, still pretty cool in the east, becoming a bit warmer through the Med. Of course, we're a long way out now, so this is all subject to big changes and is in the unreliable time frame. And then we've got the precipitation anomaly, which is really showing no signal at this point, but if anything, possibly hints of being a bit on the wet side, like Scandinavia to North Scotland, Bay of Biscay into France. Just little areas that are a bit wetter than average, perhaps an indication that this is turning more unsettled into the latter stages of June. Week 5 looks like that. Again, very weak signals by this point. I'm not sure we can ascertain much that's of any use. There's some lower pressure towards Spain and Portugal. That could just be a heat low, though. Some lower pressure towards the eastern part of Med, and some lower pressure towards Greenland, Iceland. Otherwise, there's not much to be working with. Week 5, 500 millibar height anomaly shows some lower pressure around Greenland and Iceland, some higher pressure again in the middle of the North Atlantic. Probably just a general westerly flow coming through there, I would have thought, for Northern Western Europe. The temperature anomaly is pretty weak, maybe hinting at going a little bit warmer again across western parts of Europe, but it is a very, very weak still by this point. Still a bit cooler than average over on the eastern side of Europe around Black Sea. The Med does look quite warm. The precipitation anomaly for week 5, 28th May to 5th of June. Again, really weak signals as it always is by week 5, but it is looking a little bit drier perhaps for these northern and west parts of Europe and also into the Med. The eastern part of Europe perhaps looking a little bit wetter than average. We're going to go through the week 6, which is the 5th through to the 12th of July. We look like that. So signs of higher pressure beginning to come back to our east. That could start to draw in some very warm, maybe hot east, southeasterly winds across much of northern and western Europe. Low pressure going down towards Spain and Portugal. That could just be a heat low. The 500 millibar height anomaly again suggests that high pressure returns. So yeah, this could bring, warmer, drier conditions back into the early part of July. Temperature anomalies beginning to hot up again across many western and some central and northern parts of Europe as well. So, yeah, that could be turning quite a bit hotter too. And the precipitation anomaly looks like that. Very weak signals, but probably going a bit drier, especially where we close that area of high pressure. So what an interesting update we've got for you today from the ECM Extended. So much of June looking quite cool and unsettled over on the east side of Europe. Warmer, drier on the western side of Europe. Then towards the end of June, that flips around a little bit and it turns just generally cooler and more unsettled for northern and western Europe. Maybe a little bit warmer, drier in the east and southeast of Europe. And then into July, it looks like we could start to bring the heat back to western Europe as high pressure begins to get going. But of course, that is like 6 weeks away. So I mean, that is subject to big changes. But yeah, looks like we've got quite an interesting few weeks to come. Right, if you enjoyed this extended look at with the ECMWF, then please can you like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much, everybody, for doing that. We'll be back later on with your 10 to 14 day, which will include all the regular features. So I shall see you shortly for that. Terry's goal is June and also summer forecast coming up tonight. For this one, though, that's all for now, and thanks for watching.